Welcome! This video contains an introduction, an interview so you can gain deeper understanding of the subject from spirit level, and a group frequency calibration so you can start to clear the frequency distortion patterns around this topic. Enjoy!
Hi everyone, this is Karen Cheong, and I'm here with my co-host Dennis Kelly. When people are on a spiritual path, they often see others around them who have unusual or special abilities, and they mistakenly believe that identifiable special abilities are evidence of awakening. So of course, they start wondering what their own abilities are and start to use whether they have them as a benchmark for their own spiritual progress. They feel like they're missing something if they don't know what their special abilities are, and sometimes feel more powerful when they think they do. Today we're going to discuss whether having abilities is required for the awakening process, a common mistake people make regarding abilities, and what is important to know about them if they do start to come in. After the discussion, we're going to wrap it up with a group frequency calibration to help to begin to clear the distortion patterns around this topic. So let's get started. Dennis?
Karen, there's a lot of people out there that can get quite enthralled by special abilities. And so I'm wondering for you, when you take a look at special abilities and the level of awakening, do you equate those two?
No, I don't. And I'm really glad you asked that question, because I think a lot of people confuse those two often. So they confuse special abilities with awakening. They think that they're actually intertwined. They're not necessarily. They can be, but they don't necessarily need to be. Oftentimes, special abilities can be pretty low level. Like anything that's outside of the ordinary reality, as humans, we find very fascinating. We're like, ooh.
I think we better stop right there.
Okay.
Because first of all, what are, in your mind, special abilities? What can people do that you would consider special abilities?
Well, I think I don't know if I would use me as the reference point, but I think for most people, that's when you can do something that seems outside of the ordinary reality, right? So you can, summon the wind, you can conjure things, you can know things about people, that type of thing. I think is special abilities. Or you seemingly can speak to things that are disembodied, you have information from the other side, you can talk to star beings, you can speak a special language that's not from the earth. I mean, all these sort of things, right? It can get wilder and wilder, it really depends. There's a whole vast gamut. You have a special healing ability that is unique to you or whatever, right?
So it's pretty easy for someone to get kind of caught up in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so what you're saying, I think what I'm hearing you say is kind of a word of caution.
Yeah. Well, yes. It's not even a caution. It's not even that strong. It's just having discernment, right? Okay. So to distinguish these two ideas or to unbind them from each other. Special abilities are one thing, awakening is another. They do not have to overlap. They can, but it's not required. So if you, in your awakening process, never ever have a special ability, you can still become awake. You don't need to have a special ability in order to become awake. Does that make sense? A lot of people think they do. A lot of people think, well, if I don't have a special ability, that's the gauge of my spiritual progress. That's the gauge of my awakening. So if I don't have a special ability, I'm really not that far along. Or maybe if I do have one, then all of a sudden I'm more advanced. And the thing that I think people can fall into the trap of often is when they feel like they do have a special ability because they want to help people and they want to do whatever it is, but they also want to show that they're somehow special. That somehow, that ability to do whatever it is they think they can do, that means that they're spiritually advanced. It doesn't. It just means you can do a certain thing. They're not necessarily entangled. Does that make sense? And a lot of people want to use that modality to prove to not only other people, but to themselves that they are advanced in a certain way. And you have to be very careful of that, because that's the mind. That's the ego mind that's trying to make you feel significant, special, better, which is actually separating you further and further from awakening, which is, not everybody wants it, but if you do want it, it gets you further and further away from that goal as opposed to closer and closer to it. Do you see what I'm saying?
So what what went through my mind is it's almost like a resume builder. You know, I can bend the spoon. You know, I can talk to dogs. You know, it's wow, look at me.
Yeah, I'm pretty special.
These are all special abilities that I have.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is, well, that's fine.
That's wonderful.
You know, those are nice gifts,
Yeah.
and if you're using them for the benefit of mankind, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But you yourself, have you evolved? Have you released the distortions? Have you raised your frequency? Have you moved forward as far as awakening?
Yeah.
Is the question that you
would ask. Yeah. So not of me personally, but of
No,
the person
no,
talking.
no,
Yes.
no,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. So exactly. That's what I would say. So like I said, it depends what it is that you're after, right? So if you want to feel like you have these cool superpowers, like everybody wants a superpower. Like, come on. What kid doesn't want a superpower? Everyone wants a cape. Capes are cool, all right? Like you want to be able to fly, to do special stuff. I mean, that's why like Superman and Wonder Woman, all those things have caught the collective imagination. It's so cool. Like, come on, superpowers are amazing. So everybody wants that special thing.
And you know what I might be willing to do, Karen?
What?
Is maybe sell my soul
Yeah.
in exchange
For a gift.
for that gift or that
Ability.
superpower.
Yeah, and some people do. And there are definitely people that I work with who either have or their lineages have made what I call a bid for power, which is a contract with the darkness for an exchange, where you give a piece of, like you said, of your essence, of your spirit, okay, to that darkness in order to have certain abilities on the material plane. And it's interesting because those contracts can bind generations. Now, the person who makes that bid for power may not realize that it does because they're not exactly reading the fine print of the contract. However, it can. And what happens is as the darkness entrenches into that line, it can become more and more distorted, meaning that line starts to suffer more and more things like suicides, depressions, addictions, this type of thing. Early deaths that are inexplicable. Right? And even if in that short period of time when they're alive, there's some period where it looks really bright and brilliant, there's some weird darkness that somehow comes in, right? Some thread where, like I said, like a short-lived life or an accident that befalls for some bizarre reason or rife with some kind of concern, abuse or something like this. No matter how bright and brilliant that person seems, that starts to come through the line. So as you say, the darkness can often be very happy to give a certain amount of what we would consider to be special abilities, which are actually extremely low level, okay? Manipulation of the physical realm is, and I don't mean to belittle it, okay? But in the grand spectrum of the all that is, the physical realm is very small, is all my point is.
Yeah.
It's not unimportant, it's important, and it's very tiny. It's like 0.001% of the all that is or something like this.
So I impressed you for the moment.
Yes.
But as far as my personal journey, I've sacrificed a lot.
Yeah. So what do you mean by you've impressed me?
Well, I showed you my special ability.
Oh, I see.
You
I
know,
see.
Look at this.
Yeah.
I can make this flower,
Yeah.
just curl.
Yeah.
Or
grow.
Or grow. And you go, oh, wow. But truly what you're saying is I need to take a look at my personal journey.
Yeah.
And what have I done to be able to do that?
Yes, exactly. So like I said, special abilities can be tied to the darkness very easily. And I think a lot of people who are in positions of power, who lead certain groups, actually are dark. Okay? And in fact are using these abilities to start to oppress other, because it's very easy to fool people. Unfortunately, it can, because it's easy to bedazzle them, to show them different things that you can do. And they're like, ooh, that seems exciting and real, and look what they can do. So I don't know any better, so I'm going to follow it. That must be evidence that they are ascending, that they are awakened. So they confuse these two things, yes? And therefore, they start to give their power to that person because they don't know what else to do, right? And the person might be asking for it, either overtly or not. And then this oppression starts to happen. It's very subtle. It's not like, they necessarily have you sign something up front and right? It can be more subtle than that. So that's what I'm saying about abilities. It's not an indicator of awakening. Now, I'm not saying that awakening is something that you all necessarily want to do. It doesn't have to be something that you're aspiring to. All I'm saying is that if it is something that you aspire to, the special abilities are not required in order to achieve that. okay? I mean, achieve, it's kind of a funny word to use for awakening, but whatever, to be there, or whatever you want to call it, okay? Be in that state. So I just want to disassociate those two things because it can be very confusing for people, and a lot of people start to have a lot of, it starts to activate their pain bodies and low self-doubt distortion patterns and stuff like that, and they don't trust themselves because, like, how good can I be if I'm not special like them? Like, I can't really be that advanced, right? Especially when you start to go through the fire of detox and integration, when you start frequency work. Okay, so we're talking about frequency work now as an aside, right? And you're moving through, and it seems like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is happening for some people, and they're like getting, you know, they're physically purging, or relationships are changing, or things seem to be breaking down. But that breakdown is required to happen for some of you, not all of you, so don't freak out. It's just that some of those things have to break down in order for something of a higher order to come in, okay? Yeah. So that needs to happen. And so when you're in that process of awakening, it doesn't seem like that magical. There's no like rainbows, or no unicorns, there's no angels sing. Well, maybe I guess angels might sing, I don't know. But it depends on who you are. But do you see what I'm saying? There's no like glamour, there's no story behind it, you know? There could be, but often there isn't, right? Because some people do perceive on multiple realities and they have an amazing experience as they're ascending. But not everyone does, and you're not required to in order to awaken. I just want to make that clear, because I think people, you know, we start to compare. We don't have anything else to do. I mean, how do we know, right?
And as humans, it's just natural that I compare, you know, kind of where I'm at, who I am with the person next to me. Or,
exactly.
You know, there's a lot of group experiences, and
totally.
The person next to you has had this wonderful, you know, and you sit there and go, well, yeah. What's for lunch? You know, so on that given day, you know, it's hard to say what you received or what impact it made on you.
Yeah, totally.
So, but if I'm comparing, it's like, wow, I'm not even on the A team. You know,
I'm not even on the team.
I'm not even on the bus. Coach didn't even give me a uniform. So here I'm struggling, and I'm going through this detox. Oh my God, I must be on the wrong bus.
Is there a bus?
Yeah, and where is the bus?
I know, exactly.
You know, so I think what you're saying is that everybody's journey is different.
Absolutely.
And we shouldn't get into this comparison game.
Nope.
And the fact that I can dazzle you with a special ability should not be, you know, a factor in you deciding, boy, that's what I want to be, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say it's interesting, it's because it's hard for us. There's not a lot of clear examples of people who've awakened. And as you say, the journey is unique to you. So just because, as you say, right, I'm having this experience, you might not. And I'll just give you an example that's very personal. So my husband Chris and I are very different people. Okay, and I have always had the ability to journey into different realms. It's just part of who I am. Okay, he, on the other hand, will sit there in meditation and be like, "The what's for lunch?" He's just like, "Nothing's happening. I don't even understand why I'm sitting here."
Let's go.
And he gets kind of frustrated because everyone's having these amazing experiences, and all these crazy worlds are opening, and they're flying, and all this. He's like, "I just kind of sat here, kind of, right?" And yet his experience is very different. But he knows that something has changed. He's not sure what it is, but he can feel it on some level. And for him, the thing that's a challenge for him is the longer he goes away from that being in the moment of certainty of like, I know that it wasn't as, like all the bells and whistles that you all are talking about, but I can feel, I know, I have a sense that the frequency has just changed, and it's very subtle, but I can feel it, and I can feel it in myself, and I can feel it in you, and I have goosebumps. That's enough for me. That's enough. So for him, you see what I'm saying? And this inner knowingness for him that this particular thing works. I'm talking about like frequency work or a meditation or something like this where he's felt that, right? So when he feels those moments, he's like, oh, okay, great. And the thing that's challenging for him is the further he gets away from those moments, he forgets, actually, which can be extremely challenging. And I only mention Chris because he's actually extremely advanced in terms of his frequency vibration. But he doesn't have all the like bells and whistles and, like I said, all that stuff. And I'm telling you, it's not required because he embodies a very high frequency vibration without having experienced any of that stuff, you see.
You know, when we compare kind of that special abilities to awakening, and you think about awakening and the joy and the excitement and the sense of adventure and everything that's over on this side of the ledger, there's absolutely just no comparison, you know. So to get distracted by this
Mean the abilities.
The abilities, you know, versus sacrificing that journey, which can be difficult and not real thrilling.
Sometimes. Yep.
Exactly.
And the funny thing is, the non-thrilling part of that journey, if you can keep going for just a little bit more, what the end of that gives you is liberation, right? Because again, this all comes back to personal accountability. You alone can take your journey. You alone. You alone are the one who can save yourself. Not that you need required saving, but you know what I mean? Like if you want to liberate yourself, it's up to you. This is your journey. No one else can do it for you. And so that's the thing to remember, right? So it doesn't matter that you have, like you say, all these different experiences, because in the end, what happens is it's very subtle liberation where you suddenly feel like those concerns you had before have gone. You feel somehow more centered, not as triggered by other people. You kind of can watch them and observe them and learn from them and love them from a different place than you used to, but not get bogged down by them. You can feel sort of just more free in a way, because you're not as bogged down in all the concerns you had before. And you don't even really notice it. It's almost like you're going along one day and you're just like, wait, I haven't been anxious for a little while, or whatnot, you know?
Very much so.
And then that's when the joy, the adventure, all that stuff comes in, because there's a place for it, right? It's not filled up with the worry, the anxiety, the fear, the control, the whatever it is that you had before.
Exactly. That was beautiful, the way you expressed that.
Oh, thank you.
So I think maybe the one word I heard is when it comes to special, special gifts, special, what do you call them? Abilities. Special abilities is the word discernment.
Yes.
Is just be very open.
Yes.
To what that is.
Yes, and what I would say is, if you start to have special abilities come in, some of you who are watching will.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I just want to back up. What is a special ability? If you're asking me, Karen, what is a special ability? Special abilities don't have to be about manipulating the physical realm. A special ability can be the field of my presence is so vast that when you step into my presence, you enter the present moment. What does that do? It makes you start to really notice your senses, what's around you. Time slows down for just a moment, and somehow you feel this is special. And you would never have felt that if you hadn't been in my field. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
I'm talking about the person who has this gift of this field of presence. Now, is that a special ability? Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So to me, that's a special ability. Now, is it like fancy?
Tremendous gift.
But it's a tremendous gift. Yeah. And in that moment, you can catalyze so much for that person, because they drop into that present moment and who knows what's going to open for them, because that is the gateway to the infinite. Okay, so is that like Wonder Woman kind of abilities? No, but in itself, it's tremendously powerful. Do you see what I'm saying? So when we define special ability, that's challenging, and then we strive for that thing. And what I will say is, if you do have special abilities come in that you are aware of, meaning that you can sense different things, see in the frequency realm, whatever it is your thing is, okay? You can talk more to the animals, whatever it is, all right? Which are all fantastic. Here's the catch with special abilities. Watch your ego, because it becomes very easy. We're human. We are human. Okay, so we have to watch. We don't have to. If awakening is something that you want to move forward towards, and personal accountability is part of that path, it is helpful to watch oneself. And in that process, to notice if we attach to having those abilities. Honestly, that's a real trick. There's a point there where you start to really be like, ooh, I can do this thing. Oh. And then when you start to realize you can do these things, you want to do it more. And then there's people who respond to it. And you're like, oh, great, I'm helping people. This is really cool. And it can start totally like that. I'm helping people. This is awesome. They're responding well. Okay, then notice, are you really attached to what their experience is going to be? Do you feel like you have to help them? Do you feel like you have to know what's best for them, what their best outcome is? You see what I'm saying? So you have to be really careful with special abilities. And then the key, from my perspective, is to be able to hold neutral when you have special abilities, right? Whether or not you have them at all is a very important neutrality point. How they experience the other people. So let's just imagine you have an ability that actually can benefit someone else. Okay? Are you attached to how they respond to your interaction with them? Right? Like, do you get really upset if they, I don't know, have some kind of experience that seems negative, right? Does that affect your view of yourself? Do you see what I'm saying? So it's about how much neutrality can you hold, which is an indication of how strong you are on spirit level, how complete you are, which is an indication actually of how close you are to awakening in respect to your special abilities. You have to be real careful with that.
I could see that. It's almost like where I get caught up in this special ability, and now it defines who I am.
Exactly.
And this is my persona.
Right.
And I'm known around town as the guy that can do this.
Yeah.
And rather than continuing the journey and continuing to evolve and releasing and moving, now I'm kind of stuck because guess what? This is who I am.
Yeah, and now it's become my identity.
Exactly.
I'm attached to it. It's now fixed. And when that starts to happen, the path towards awakening slows down to a grinding halt. Okay? It actually can take a detour, which is fine because perhaps you learn from it. And that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But it isn't a steady progression towards that point, right? Or I know it's not a point because it's infinite, but whatever. Towards that higher level states. Let's call it that. Okay.
And don't you find, Karen, that these are concerns with people a lot of times that are starting the journey, and so they kind of get caught up in these special abilities or these comparing themselves to others or whatever. But as they start to evolve and move, those things are not as much of a concern.
It's true. And what I would say, yes, and it also flares for people who've done work and they have issues with low self-worth or non-deserving. Meaning, not issues, let me reframe that. Heavy distortion patterns around low self-worth and non-deserving where they feel like they want to have that in order to validate self because it makes them feel like good about themselves. I'm not belittling this, okay? So this is a very, self-doubt can be a very crippling thing, all right? And even if you've done a lot of frequency work, this may be a theme for you or a distortion pattern that's very heavily entrenched, in which case that need for the special ability has the mind going, right? The ego mind of like, oh, that makes me feel good to have that. So just watch yourself, right? This is not about beating yourself up. This is about having responsibility and accountability and watching yourself to see, are you attaching to that? Oh, yeah, I am, especially for those of you out there who are more advanced. Oh, wait, I'm attached to having that special ability. All right, we got to get more neutral on this. Okay, so release this distortion pattern around this, especially for those, like I said, those of you who are advanced and know what I'm talking about. It's to watch yourself and do the confirmation of the deletion of the pattern. And if you're starting to learn quickly the discernment between, or the distinction between abilities and awakening. They're not necessarily the same.
And I think what's a real good test as you go through this process is, can I let go?
Yes.
Of that special ability.
Exactly. So that's the thing that I always test with myself. It's like, if I couldn't do this tomorrow, would it be okay? And so far the answer is yeah. Yeah.
Because you continue to move.
Yes.
And so you don't know what tomorrow looks like.
Exactly. And really, to me, this is all about being aware of my connection to pure source. More and more and more awareness about my connection to pure source. If it comes through as this particular thing that I happen to be able to do, wonderful. If it's not, that's okay. It really is. Because that's just what is happening in the physical world or whatever, right? Something else will express or not, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't know, right? It's just continuing to surrender and follow.
So today you can have tremendous gratitude for the gifts that you have and that you're sharing with others. Knowing that tomorrow,
it might be gone, and that's okay.
Wow, what a session. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Karen, could you help me? I hear so often when I look at your video or your website, GFC. Exactly what is that?
A GFC is a group frequency calibration, which looks a lot like a guided meditation on a particular topic. And what I'm doing is I'm helping you to remove the distortion patterns of that particular topic. And because you're coming together as a mastermind in a group to connect to Pure Source even more and to clear the distortion patterns of this particular topic, what happens is a tremendous amount of momentum starts to happen because of the energetic of the entire group, and each individual is able to move faster and ascend higher than they could have on their own.
Welcome everyone to the Group Frequency Calibration on Special Abilities. Who needs them? So the theme for this GFC is basically to remove the attachment or yearning for special abilities, because we feel that it makes us more powerful, more awakened, more advanced, or just somehow better about ourselves. Special abilities are not required in the awakening process. They can come about as awakening happens, but it's not required. So a lot of people feel like less than because they don't have special abilities, but that's not the point in terms of the awakening process. So this GFC is dedicated to becoming more neutral towards having them, and then clearing whatever is required so the awakening process can accelerate. And if special abilities come in, well, great. And if they don't, that's great too. Okay? So here we go. It's funny, in the neutrality, often that's when things appear. So first, becoming aware of your body. And as you become aware of your body, becoming aware of what the palms of your hand are touching. So is it your own skin, because they're resting on your body? Is it touching some kind of fabric? Or are they touching some kind of fabric, I should say? Are they just open to the air? And if they're touching, in quotes, the air, registering the sensation of the air on the palms, its temperature, its humidity, whether that air is in motion, becoming aware of the sensation in your palms. Good. Yep. And now becoming aware, please, of your breath. Noticing it first without changing it. And if you can, without judging it. What is the quality and rhythm of your breath in this moment? And once you've taken a few moments to notice your breath, now taking this opportunity to allow the breath to become slower, more full, to deepen it, allowing it to move from your chest and drop into your belly. Being aware of the chest and the belly as they rise and fall. Good. And now becoming aware of your surroundings. So first, noticing all the sounds around you other than the sound of my voice. So all of those little sounds that may go unnoticed, the hum of the refrigerator, the swooshing of a dishwasher, the clicking of a clock. And then noticing the sounds on my end. Dogs barking, birds chirping. Noticing the soundscape. Good. And now becoming aware of the quality of light. So some of you can do this without opening your eyes. You can just feel it. Others of you need to open your eyes in order to physically perceive the light and notice the quality. So if you need to physically look at it, go ahead and do that. One is not better than the other. It's just different senses. You have proficiencies in different things. Good. And now becoming aware, please, of the upper ribs, so meaning between your heart space in the center of your chest and your nipple line and your collarbones, and the front of your throat space. And as you become aware of these two spaces, taking one nice big breath in, holding your breath at the very top of your breath for a count of 4. And after you've exhaled all the air out of your lungs and have held your breath out, please do so for a count of 5. For those of you with a faster count, keeping your attention on those 2 points, breathing normally. And as we wait for the mastermind to coalesce and become coherent, for those of you who are new, please note that I'm working on you at the group and the subgroup level, and that I'll be making noises on my end. So you'll likely hear me yawn, or exhale sharply, or hum. And more, I'm working in silence as I access higher and higher frequencies. So I won't be making physical noise during that time because it actually just lowers the resonance level, which doesn't serve you. So just know that if I'm not making any noise, I'm still working on you, and if I'm making noises, I'm removing distortion patterns. Okay? So now that the mastermind has come together, keeping your attention on the upper ribs and the front of the throat, we're going to ask ourselves the following question. How can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And for those of you who are new, that question again is, how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And as you ask yourself that question, please imagine, sense, feel, or become aware of the very center of your body, or rather the space at the very center of your body. And for those of you who have been doing this work for a little longer, you know where I'm going, so go ahead and imagine all of that expanding. For those of you who are new, please become aware of a brilliance at the very, very center of this space, in the center of your body. And as you become aware of this brilliance, it intensifies even more and expands outwards as a result of its intensification through your cells, through your organs, your bone structure, radiating out through your muscles and flesh, out through the pores of your skin, into the space between your physical body and the outer perimeter of your spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length, all around you. Please become aware of the brilliance within the sphere. So really noticing or imagining it there. And this brilliance becomes so intense that the sphere begins to shake or to oscillate from side to side. For a few of you, it will begin to spin. And for a few of you, it will remain still. None of these options is better than the other. Just notice what's happening with your sphere. And now please become aware of or imagine the space all around the sphere. And as you become aware of this vast space, I'm working on spirit level to increase your frequency resonance, irrespective of what level you are at. And I'm doing this because A, the session is the most effective for you if it's coming from the highest resonating order, and B, because you cannot come to this level on your own yet. You are learning or knowing the way. Essentially, you're in training to your future possibility. Yeah. So now bringing your attention, please, to your solar plexus, which is between your belly button and the base of your sternum. Okay. So this is an ego-mind distortion and a thought form that it's a confusion that special abilities is equal to or signifies spiritual awakening. It does not. There are many people who have special abilities who are not very awake and are actually of quite a low resonance. There's a very big difference between the two. So, as I mentioned, it is not required for you to have special abilities in order to awaken. So let's release this thought form. And the other frequency, which is intertwined with it, this is the distortion rather, of low self-worth, non-deserving. That if somehow you don't have special abilities, that you're not worthy of being seen, loved, accepted, or even of awakening. Or, in a different subgroup, that you're not worthy of somebody who does have special abilities, that they're somehow better than you. That's not true either. So, working on all these different subgroups. Bring your attention, please, to your rib cage. Yes, so this is the distortion pattern of, it's essentially another ego distortion. Well, the yearning for special abilities, and more specifically, the attachment to having them. For a larger subgroup of you in this next layer here. There is a distortion pattern of arrogance. Okay, so if you have any kind of perception that is heightened, you can quickly move into arrogance, where you feel like you know more or are better than someone else. You're not. It's just a different layer of perception. So let's release this, because this will slow you down for sure on your spiritual path. The need to feel better than someone else is simply a trick of the ego mind. It does, however, reveal how much distortion you still need to release, which is a good thing. Good. So between the heart space all the way up to the hollow of the throat along the sternum. Okay. This has to do with essentially the tendency to give one's power away to someone who does have abilities. Okay? So to elevate them above us, to take what they indicate as truth as ours, without checking internally first to see if it resonates. So releasing this distortion so you can continue to hold your space and have neutrality. Good. Mm-hmm. Bring your attention to your heart space, please. Yeah. So we're clearing out the distortion that anything other than your own awareness of your connection to pure source is needed or required for the refinement of that process. Okay? It's all that it's about. Your own awareness of your connection to pure source. Everything else is much, 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 much less relevant. Good. Bringing your attention, please, to your xiphoid process, and about 3 inches or 7 centimeters directly beneath it towards your belly button. Resetting, clearing out, and integrating your pain body. Good. This brings us to the end of this session. I look forward to working with you on the next GFC. These GFCs help people release distortion patterns. It's my sincere hope that you benefit profoundly from this series, which is why I spend so much of my personal resources creating these as my gift to the world. If a GFC topic resonates with you, often more work that can be provided in this one GFC is needed to really clear or loosen deeply held distortion patterns in areas that are sticky. Because these patterns are like layers of an onion, Usually, there are multiple layers to individual topics. Depending on how much of a challenge this topic is for you, it may make sense for you to go deeper than what this session allows. If you feel this is the case for you, please visit sphericalluminosity.com for more targeted support.